this, you know, weekly routine of me asking if everybody can hear me, even though you can, but I do it just in case something is messed up. So, hello everybody. Can everybody hear me? Is it on? Can you see me as well? That's also important, probably. Unless if you don't like me, then that's a good thing, probably. Okay, I saw the first hello, and I assume that that's a general hello. Okay, there's another hi, hello. Hi, how's the delay today? Is the delay bad? That response, or that delay for the highs was pretty bad. Last week was like the best delay that we've had. It was only like 8 seconds, maybe. Okay. Well, it looks like everything is on, and it's working. So that's good. Is everybody here? Do we need to alert anybody? To like, hey, the stream has started? Or are we all good? Because today we're doing Elaria's education system, which should be interesting. Oops. Oh, that was bad. Okay. Oh, it's your birthday today? Happy birthday! Okay. So... Oh, Rolinix, welcome. Is Mr. Fruit here today? You're gonna play this in the background while you're doing the dishes? That's a good way to pass the time, I guess. I don't know. I mean, you might want to look over here every once in a while because we're gonna be writing some stuff down. You're late? You're not late by very much. You're only late by like a couple minutes. Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, here's the thing with this, right? So we made the document again, and this one's not as long as like the government system. We were very productive last episode. But as far as the education system, I don't think it's going to take that much time. Because it's pretty much a general description of sort of what we can expect. So I don't know what we're going to do. Like, because I don't think that this is going to take the full 2 hours. So we'll have to come up with something else to do after we're done with this. I don't know, you know, if we're just going to end the stream or if we're going to, like, I don't know, play Snake the entire time or pick another topic to talk about. I don't know, but I just don't think this is going to take a lot of time. So I don't know. How about the currency? That could work. Except, well, I mean, I guess for the currency, I assume it's going to be very similar to just like a paper currency. Paper and coin currency. It'll just be called something different. And then we could establish, like, how much is one worth? So, like, in the US, $1 is worth $1. Well, I guess that's what we would keep. But I'm talking about, like, say, for example, you can buy a candy bar for $1, right? In Elarian dollars, or whatever currency they have, is 2 of their currency going to equal 1 candy bar? So, like, how expensive or how many of the singular one thing does it cost to get a candy bar or something? I don't know. Yeah, we could come up with a name for it and stuff like that. Okay, I haven't heard anything from Mr. Fruit, so I'm going to go ahead and add them. While we're waiting. Okay. Well, I think we should just go ahead and get started. Because... Well, okay, the candy bar... The candy bar is just as a reference, okay? I was just saying in the US you can get a candy bar for like $1. and in other countries maybe it costs, well, I don't know, but like maybe it's £2 in England or something. I don't know. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. This is the right one. So we've got this document. Like, it's only 1 page long, so it's not like there's that much to do. And we did sort of previously establish sort of what we wanted the education system to look like. We said previously that we wanted it to be fairly similar to the US school system, and for people outside of the US, I don't know how different it is. It's basically just a standard education. So first through like 8th grade in Elaria, well, I guess we have it 9 to keep with the theme of 9 here. But basically 1 through 9 would just be standard education, so everybody's required to take math, English, like science, stuff like that. So there's going to be like the core stuff that everybody has to learn. It's not very specific. And then for the last couple of years, which I don't know if it's like what it's going to be called or anything, but the last couple of years is going to be a specific topic to study, and they're going to keep one teacher throughout all of their years of study. So it's like, for example, Luna and Blake. Well, I guess Luna's a bad example because I think she switched out of a different class. But like other people in Blake's class would have Blake for all 2 or 3 years, however long his class runs for, and then after that year is over, then Blake will get all brand new students for 3 or 2 years or whatever, and then that's how it's gonna work. So it should be interesting. It'll be similar to college for the last couple of years, even though like in the US it will have been like the amount of time that a typical high school degree would have taken, except they do more. So yeah, I don't know. That's just sort of what we established before, and that's basically what this describes here. And I assume that this check yes, I didn't write this specifically. And I assume this is just like, do we all agree that this basic summary is what we're going to go with? Career training, that's a good idea. I think I called it down here trade school. So I don't know. This could totally change. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on the name. I was just like, oh, trade school works for now. Yeah, career training also works. Okay. What subject did Blake teach? Well, it's sort of like, we're still sort of talking about it, but it's either history of folklore or history and folklore, or history, I don't know. It's something with folklore / history. We haven't decided exactly which it is, or if it's both or only one. So, well, there's Mr. Fruit. Welcome. So, okay, I think everybody agrees with this, so I'm just going to remove this check yes, because if it's here, then that's it. It's confirmed at that point. I'm going to go ahead and bullet that over. Okay. So, how is the education funded? So, like, does the government pay for the education? Or, well, okay, I think funded is maybe, I think it should be changed to, how is education, like, who runs the education? Is it the government, or is it like private companies / organizations? Because there's some like government-owned schools, and then there's some like private-owned schools. A lot of colleges in the US are private-owned schools instead of government schools. So, what do we think? Should it be run by the government? And then I have another thing. Where was it? I added something. I don't know. Oh, this one right here. Is it all? Because if all schools are owned by the government, then it might make sense for all of the schools just to be called like a certain name. Except it would be it might be like the name, for example, if they were all owned by the government, it could be like Elaria Schooling, and then it would specify like this city's school, like Elaria School, this city's school, Brynor School, for example. Or, I mean, it could also be owned by the government and have different names. And if we're doing like sports, where they're like having rivals and but like across cities, and then like even bigger to the islands, like there could be a huge island brawl for like football or something. I'm talking about American football here. Not saying that would be in Elaria, but I'm just giving an example. But like it might make more sense to have separate names for that. In school, there could be like a fast track, which is paid and better for like upper classes and normal people who... Okay. So there's basically two options. Government probably, but different career paths should be private. Okay. Yeah, the night school should definitely be owned by the government. So I think it should be a mix. Like, there might be a couple organizations that have specific schools specifically for that job. So, for example, maybe there would be like a maid school, and it's like there's one official, well, not I don't know if official would be the right word, but there's like one maid school. If you want to be a professional maid that works for super rich people, that's the school you go to. And it's not owned by the government, it's owned by like professional maids who used to be maids, but instead we're like, okay, let's actually turn this into a school because it's a proper thing that needs to be taught. So I think it could be a mix. And then there's obviously going to be some benefits. So like the private companies, they obviously have to make money, so that's going to cost money. However, the government could pull a little bit more strings and possibly make education free or cheaper depending on like the kind of teachers that they have. And a lot of times the government-owned schools aren't as expensive because they're not being paid as much. So, and it's just like they have poorer like teachers and whatnot. So schools would have a relationship to the government that U.S. elementary schools are, but then things like the night schools would be run by the government. Schools should be government owned so that the king has most power. Certain companies could invest money in those schools, specialize in companies' line of work. So you think, so maybe it's all run by the government, but there are specific companies that sponsor schools. Would that be better? I think that might, I mean, as far as the king and his, like, he wants to make sure that everybody is learning the right stuff. So actually that might make sense, because if the government is owning the schools, that means that they make the curriculum, and in that they can specifically say, they can tell what to teach the kids, versus a private school, which might be like, well, we're not government owned, we're not controlled by the government, so we will just, you know, say something that the king might not like. And so maybe that would work better. And so instead of, oh, you know what, why did I do that? I meant to do this. There we go. All, oh, whoops, yeah, government run, but sponsors from companies. Okay. That, I think that works well, because that makes the most sense with the king. So then, would the education be free? I'll just move this over here. I think it would probably depend on the degree. Like professional school, isn't the king having all under his wing? Okay, so instead of like a true private school, I think what makes the most sense is as far as what we just talked about, was like sponsors. So like, for example, the maid school, that could be run by maids and it would be basically a private school, but it's all through the government. So the government is funding the school, the government is, you know, like running it from the backside. They're providing everything aside from maybe like the teachers there. So they may, and maybe the curriculum, depending on, because if it is a sponsored school, it's likely going to be completely different as far as the curriculum goes. So it's not going to be like we're teaching basic history stuff. And that might even be just for like the trade schools. So the government's probably less concerned with something about maiding, because it's like, okay, well, the history of maids, that doesn't really have anything to do with Elaria's history, and there's nothing that could get out about notebooks or whatever. So the government's probably going to be more laxed. So it'll be like a private company, but it's all still tied to the government. So that's sort of what that is. So as far as free education goes, since it all is government run, it is easier to make it make there be free education. But that does cause issues as far as like, well, does that mean taxes are going to rise? How are they paying for it? This and that. So is education maybe seen as something that you do as like it's your duty to do? So the teachers aren't necessarily expecting pay, but maybe instead they would get benefits. So maybe like their apartment or their housing rent is cut in half. Well, even then, if they're not being paid, they wouldn't. So they would have to have some other way to get money. So I don't know. It could be similar to like the night training thing, where as far like it's people who have retired from their previous job, and so maybe they are maybe they're being paid still by the previous employer to go teach. I don't know. We're just brainstorming here. But I think the cost for tuition in the US is super insane. So I don't think it should be as expensive. Specifically, since the cost for college is significantly higher than the cost for every other school. So I'm thinking, since it's not like there's a college, but it's like, I don't know, the trade schooling years are like college, but they're not. For some reason, I'm not envisioning it, because college is like, you, depending on your course and what your major is, you don't even have to go to school that often. Like maybe you go to school like 3 times a week. It's like, oh, well, you don't have to go to school that much. But I'm thinking for maybe the trade school, the students are still going there every single day. So it's very similar to high school, as in like you go every single day, there's a routine, but you're learning about a specific thing, which is interesting because it's like a combo between college and high school. So yeah, is education free? I don't think it should be free. I think it should be, well, for now, we don't even have to put a price tag on it, because we don't know how much a certain thing is. How would Blake be able to hide from the king? Should be institutions that don't fall under government control. Well, as far as Blake goes, well, that sort of brings up the question, is Blake truly on the run, or is the king sort of like, okay, well, we will see what's going on? Because we haven't talked about that plot line yet. We've sort of talked about like how Blake is on his own, but we haven't sort of talked about if the king is actively searching for him, or if he's just like, I'll let him go for now. He's out there somewhere. he might even be on Earth, because Blake doesn't know that he's been split. So the king doesn't know that he's been split. So the king might just be like, oh, well, he might even be on Earth somewhere. I have no idea where he's at, so it's not even worth searching for him. And Blake can go under an alias if he wants to. And it's not necessarily, like, here's the thing, right? The king is the only person who has conflict with Blake. So, and if Blake is the kind of person who, you know, sure, he was a knight, and he may have been, like, on the higher up ranks, but if he was careful about it, he could have made sure that he stayed in the background, and that a lot of people, like, he didn't have a fan base that grew on him and stuff like that. So it's not even like the government would be too concerned with him, because it's only the king who's after him, and maybe, like, the top knights, if that. But I don't think that would even be the case. I think it's only the king who's after him. And the king is not going into each individual school searching for him. The king has no idea where Blake is and what he's doing. So I think the odds of him being discovered when only one person knows about it, I mean, sure, he might be like the supreme ruler, but if he doesn't even care about searching for Blake at this point, it's like he's not going to find him just by pure coincidence. So I think that's not so much of an issue, but it is something that we will have to talk about. Yeah, the king doesn't want to make a scene either. So, okay, I'm just going to say no for education being free, because I think it should have a price tag, but not nearly as much as, like, U.S. schools. Okay. Is there one school name that all schools share? I think no. I think it should be, like, Brynor Prep, and then maybe there is, I don't know, John School. I don't know, just throwing out stupid stuff there. Because then it's like, there could be actual competition. It's not like, oh, we're going up against this city school. It's like, oh, you could have specific school names, and you can have, like, patriotism and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it should be, especially since they're not, I mean, I guess technically they're all under the government, but, like, a lot of them are probably going to be sponsored by specific companies and stuff like that. If Blake somehow got past the king's security by a different name and teach on a different island, that would be a cool moment when the king realizes he's not as safe as he thought. That would be cool. Papyrus on a small island. Well, I don't know. We're not really, it's not like we're going to be talking, I mean, I get that that's sort of like related because he works at a school, but as far as getting into the specifics with Blake versus the king and what their relationship is right now, that's not, I mean, we could talk about that later, since I don't think there's no way this is going to take the full 2 hours. But that'll definitely be saved, maybe for a king stream, because we'll have to answer sort of, well, it'll probably come like future king stream. Okay. So, are we ready to move on to this next question? Or did we still need to talk about the Blake thing? Are we good on that? Maybe? Okay, I think we're good. Hopefully. The delay seems to be pretty bad, which is sad because it wasn't that bad last week. It wasn't that bad last week. So, that's too bad. Anyway. Does everybody get the same quality of education? So basically you're asking if some schools are better than others because they're funded more. And since they're all run by the government, except saying that they're run by the government's a bad thing, they are all tied to the government in some way. I think that each school, there's not like there's a school that's better than another school in general, especially for like the 1 through 9 years. Yeah, the 1 through 9 years, that is just, it just basically comes down to where you live. I think the curriculum for 1 through 9 is going to stay the same, every school, everybody learns the exact same stuff. It's consistent. It's just a matter of where you live and where the closest school to you is. I think that's fine. But as far as like the trade school stuff, that's when things are like, well, what's going on with that? Because, I mean, obviously there's going to be different courses. But I think as far as this question goes, I think everybody, as far as 1 through 9, everybody gets the same quality of education. There's not going to be one school that's ultimately better than another school. It's just, you know, you go to whatever school is closest to you at that point. And that's not to say like sports. There's obviously going to be some sport, if we do choose to include sports in the education system, there's going to be some schools that are better at sports than others, so then maybe you'd want to go to that one. But as far as education goes, I think education should stay pretty well rounded throughout all of the school. No? You not like that? The education would likely also be very biased on Elarian species, since some are species. So, what species are the Whisperers? Well, the Whisperers are just the king's collection of, was it 9 or 8? 9 knights? And so they are his personal guard. We don't know what species there are, and here's the thing, right? There's no like one Elarian species because there's a whole bunch of different species on Elaria. There's elves, dwarves, probably goblins are a monster, but like there's different species on there. So yeah. So like my guess is like maybe there's a lizard whisperer, maybe there's an elf whisperer and a halfling whisperer. So it's just a collection of a bunch of different races and species. Crayfee, we are going through the education system, so this is all we have so far. And, well, believe it or not, we're actually about halfway done, so, yeah. Go ahead and get rid of the tab right there. Okay. So, is there a problem with, this? Like, were some people saying no, or was that for something different? Like, can we all agree that all schools are pretty much the same? It's just a matter of where you live? As far as, like, 1 through 9 education? Man, I don't know why the stream delay is so bad this week. Makes me sad. Alright. Yes. Okay. Can people change their major in trade school? Yes, they can, because Luna did it, so that was a pretty easy question. I just wanted to confirm. Also, I mentioned this earlier, but some new people have joined. Trade school is just what I call the main thing, or like the schooling, the last schooling that you have. So that name could totally change. That's just what I thought worked at that moment. Okay, does everybody go to trade school? Because here's the thing, right? Not in the US, at least, not everybody goes to college. Some people choose to go straight into the workplace because not every workplace requires you to get a college education. So, is trade school just something that everybody expects you to go, especially since it is just sort of like an extension? It's basically just high school, but a little bit different, specifically only for your craft or trade. So, based on that, I would think that it's expected that everybody goes to trade school, even though it's not necessarily necessary. So, it's just like everybody sort of expects everybody to go to trade school, but you definitely can find people out there who have not been to trade school. except it would probably just be hard. Should have levels where you drop at one point and you can still get a job, but the more you go, the better job you have. That's interesting, because we were sort of talking about how like 10 through 12 or 13 or 14, however long it took you, depending on the major, because like, I don't know, a night major might only take you 2 years to complete, while becoming a doctor might take you 4 or 5 years to complete. So maybe as far as like the doctor one, if you wanted to just become a nurse, you could stay in school for 2 years and then you could be like, oh, I'm qualified to be a nurse. But then if you wanted to become like a doctor, then you would have to stay for another year or so. And then if you wanted to become like a surgeon, then you'd have to stay for the entire years or whatever. So I think that makes sense. But I think as far as everybody goes as far as this question, I think it's expected that everybody goes to trade school, but not everybody ends up going. It's like, it's just sort of, you don't have to, but everybody expects you to. So maybe like most people go. Is that good? Trade school should actually be helpful, unlike college in the US, so the whole training part of a job would be included in the trade, so you're more likely to get a job if you go to trade school. Exactly. Going to trade school is training you to work in the trade that you want to work in. That was a mouthful. So, for example, there would be a trade school there wouldn't be a specific trade school maybe, but maybe there would, depending on, like, if there's a company that sponsors, like the company that runs the ships that go across the islands, maybe that company has sponsored an entire school, like an entire trade school. And so that sponsored company or that sponsored school is training people specifically for that company. And that company is going to have a bunch of different things. So they're going to have the magic users who actually control the boats, and then they're going to have people who control the docks, and then they're going to have helpers and waitresses on the boats and stuff. So maybe they have an entire school for people who are like, yes, I want to go work for this specific company. Maybe that specific school is for that specific company. But yeah, I think that's sort of that's how school works here. Yeah. Well, college is kind of weird, but yeah, I think trade school is definitely preparing you for a specific trade, and it's like you're actually doing stuff and you're actually working. There's probably going to be some time, depending on the trade, of course. Like, if you're just becoming a history major, it's like, okay, well, there's not really much for you to do. I mean, like, maybe you could pick like an internship kind of thing, but it's not like you're preparing for one specific workplace job. Whereas if you were preparing to be a knight, you could actually buddy up with a professional knight and then go on actual quests, for example. So, and we'll also have to talk about quests. I am interested to see what we end up doing with that, because there's a lot of cool possibilities that I'm looking forward to for that. But okay, are there sports/clubs at school? I think so, because when Nico ends up going to Elaria, I feel like there should be some school episodes where it's like, oh, here's the school, because like if it's on a weekend, and like a weekend for Nico may be different for Luna, so it's like, oh, I'm gonna take you to school as like I don't know, like a visitor or something. I don't know if you could do that, but I think that would be cool. So I think there should definitely be sports and clubs, because then you could have like fun rivals, and then you could have like a rival episode where it's like you are going to like a school farther away to like watch a game of a sport of some kind. So I don't know. I think that just it creates more opportunities for different kinds of episodes. Mushroom Pet Selling Club. Okay, that's not, it's starting to sound like a cult kind of thing. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Okay, so I'm gonna say yes to that. How long are the school days? So this is just basically asking, well, how? Because remember, like I just talked about it a second ago. I think what it should be is it should be similar to high school as far as like, you go to school 5 days a week, you stay there for 7 hours or however long, you go home, that's it. Whereas, college is completely different because it's like, depending on your major, of course, you could have to go to school 3 times a week and maybe for like 2 or 3 hours. So you have a lot more free time, but it's also like, I mean, you're studying and stuff, so, So, I think if we're gonna go like the more high school-y feel route, there should be a specific amount of time. But I don't think it should be 7 hours, because 7 hours I think is maybe like the traditional high school length of time. But on Elaria, if this is a trade school, you're only learning about one thing. And it's not like you're learning math, English, Spanish, stuff like that. You're only focusing on one thing. So the school day doesn't have to be as long. And this could... So... But how long are weeks? That's also a good question. We might keep it simple and just say 7 days a week. Just to keep it simple. I mean, we don't have to completely change it, because then it gets it gets problematic if you start changing stuff as far as time goes. And as cool as it would be to have a 30-hour clock instead of a 24-hour clock, it just creates a whole bunch of problems that we have to account for. So part of me is just like, well, let's just keep the date and the time stuff pretty simple. Just change the name, So, yeah. So, just assuming that the school days are assuming that the weeks are 7 days a week, do we want 5 day a week school classes, or does it alternate? Like, you go to school one day, you're off the next, then you go again? If it was alternating, then the school days would have to be a little bit longer, because you'd get less time. Whereas if you went 5 days a week, then you could have like a 4-hour school day. That's only 20 hours a week. Maybe you have requirements to pass class. That's interesting. So maybe it's like there's no length of time for the school days. It's just what the teacher has planned for that day. And if you get done with everything that you had planned for that day, actually, I sort of like that. What about this? Okay, everybody is required to go to school for at least 1 hour a day, and maybe 4 days a week, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We can have Friday off. Everybody is required to go, and everybody has the same start time all across the world, all across Elaria. So, say for example, everybody goes to school at 8 o'clock, and that's the bell time. That's when it starts, okay? And then everybody has to stay there for at least 1 hour. That's pretty simple. But, for example, doctors, they're going to take up more time, because that's a huge field that there's a lot of stuff to cover. Just, it's intense. So, they might end up staying there for 5 hours a day. Whereas, I don't know, at night, maybe the only thing they had planned for that day was practicing some magic. And so they're done in like 1.5 hours. Then they're just like, okay, everybody can go home. I think that's awesome. I don't know. I feel like that would be cool. Okay. That's why Dorelia might get good grades, because he crunches getting all done in a very short time. Yeah. Because, I mean, if you have more time off of school, that just gives you more free time to do whatever you want. And so that could actually be very good for the story, because if Luna's in school all the time, like summer doesn't last forever, and if we're gonna have, you know, some time skips, obviously we're not gonna have like full-on time skips, but if we wanted to have a time skip to where Luna and Nico stayed on Elaria for a little while practicing their magic in their free time after Luna's school, and maybe that's during Nico's summer, or if we wanted to fast forward a year on Nico's side of things, then having Luna be in school for less time might make more sense, because then they could actually go on adventures for longer periods of time. So I don't know. Yeah, you can do things in your field related to your job, and maybe there's a requirement to do stuff like that. So maybe there's like a required internship to where, depending on your field, and some fields might not even have to do anything. So for example, like a history field, well, what are you supposed to do? I mean, maybe there's a required internship, but it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe history is more for like teaching stuff. I don't know. But I think maybe there's a required internship and you have to spend this amount of time. Maybe there's like a set time. So maybe it's like 1 hour a day. But you could say that's pretty unrealistic, because it's like, well, you're going there for 1 hour to an internship. It's like, well, that's not hardly enough time to do anything. So most people probably break it up to between 2 days. If it's 7 days a week, 1 hour per day, then some people probably do 3 hours a day, 1 day, and then 4 hours the next day. And it's like they've completed their internship quota for the day. If the students can choose... Oh, wait, you're responding to somebody else. This amount of time this amount of time in lectures is the amount of time you practice at some. So maybe it's like, if you go to school for 7 hours, or well, that's a bad example. If you are in school for that week for a total of 5 hours, then you have to do 5 extra hours of internship work. I think if we equated it to that equation, it would get pretty hectic for people like doctors, because if they're doing 5 hours a day for 4 days a week, that's 20 hours of schooling, plus they'd have to do an additional 20 hours of work, plus they'd have to study. So I don't know. I think it should be a set time for everybody. And maybe it depends on the major as well. So maybe, you know what, it might be better just to say, like, depending on your course, like a night course might require 8 hours of internshipping a week, whereas doctors might only require 5 because they have so much other stuff to do. So, okay, how do I want to write this down? 4 days of school a week, minimum of 1 hour per day. Teachers teach for however they need. Some professionals won't need as much lectures as practice. Yeah, some majors will benefit from having more practice, so that's why I think, as far as the internship stuff goes, it depends specifically on the major that you're in. Like, if you are doing a night major, you might need more practice than just, you know, sitting in school and doing the set amount of like 10 minutes of practice that you get with a buddy. So they might say, okay, well, go partner up with like an actual night and have them teach you for an internship for, you know, a couple hours a week or whatever. You think the minimum should be more than 1 hour? 2 hours? Okay, well, we can make that 2 hours. 2 hours. Okay. And like that, Luna's learning things at 1. She wants to get to the night exam, so she learns how to undercover, yeah. Since she has a lot of time, she can afford to go to like tutors and whatnot for knighthood stuff, even though she's not, you know, doing that. She's technically in the history major. 4 hours 3? No, okay, here's the thing, right? This is just a minimum point, but a lot of teachers have more to teach than just 2 hours of content. So they're going to be extending that period of time. So they can go, like if Blake has 4 hours of stuff to teach, he has to have at least 2 hours of them in school. But they just stay there for however long Blake makes them stay there. Blake is her night teacher. Yeah, exactly. So she can get help with Blake after school. Since it's not as long as, you know, traditional high school in the US, there's a lot more time to actually do stuff regarding your trade, hence why there's a required internship stuff. And are we all good on that internship thing? So most people have 5-hour days plus an internship. Right. So depending on your major, you're going to have a set time for internship. Required internships depends on major. So there should be exams to enter jobs so that anybody can take not only a course. Well, some jobs are going to, I think depending on who's hiring you, there's not necessarily like an exam that you have to take to get a job. It's more of like an internship, or not an internship, an interview to see like, oh, well, do we actually want this person or not? That's how it's more gonna be. That being said, if it was like a sponsored college, like for example the transport ships college or trade school, like they might have an exam at the end of their school time, but if they pass that exam, then they're instantly hired because they went to a specific school for a specific company. So they don't have to do an internship or an interview because they already took an exam and they already were applied through that school. So that is basically their application to get into that workplace, as long as they pass the school. So that's one benefit to having like a sponsored school versus a non-sponsored school. Oh, night exams. Well, that all depends on how you become a knight. And so I don't know if that's like there's a knight advisor who's like, okay, well, we want you to be a knight and we accept you, like if it is an interview kind of thing, or if there is like a certain test that they have to take. Like I'm sure depending on the knight course that you wanted to, like, so for example, if you were just wanting to become a knight that patrolled the streets, then I'm sure that there would have to be some rules that you would have to know. So during the interview, they would probably have you answer questions based on like rules to make sure you know the rules. So that could sort of be like an exam. Knights could be chosen by tournaments that are ranked that way each year. So that's another thing, like quests and tournaments, I want to implement those, but I don't know what the best way is, so we're gonna have to do some brainstorming on that. And we'll have a whole like night / quest / tournament exam or stream. Yeah, okay. This could be related to the joke about everybody liking Blake. His students always stay the full amount while others don't stay for their teachers. Okay, so like everybody's like, oh, okay, I think there might be a little bit of confusion here. Is this minimum of 2 hours? I was originally just saying this is a minimum for the teachers. The teachers have to be at school with the students for 2 hours, and the students have to stay there for 2 hours. I was sort of thinking that if the teachers had 4 hours of content for that week, or for that day, that the teacher and all of the students would be required to stay for that time. But should it be that this 2 hours is only for the students? So if some students were like, okay, I'm out of here after 2 hours, even though the teacher has 4 hours of content planned, are they allowed to leave? That, I feel like we need to clear that confusion up. Maybe Friday is the exam day. Not everybody takes the test, which is why Friday isn't school day. I like that. That's a good idea. Where can we write that down? Friday is this exam day. Like that. Maybe they can catch up personally with the teacher but pay. So like a tutor kind of thing. Like school would start at 9 and then break at 12 and then trade classes start at 1 and that's for however long. Well, once you are past 9th grade, then trade school is your entire life. Like you've basically graduated primary school and you have moved on to the trade school. No, it doesn't overlap. Okay. So are students required to stay for the entire amount of time that the teacher is teaching? Or is it like the students only have to stay for 2 hours? But if Friday is an exam day, then why would it be a day off? Wouldn't exams be very important? Okay, so I'm thinking that it's not like there's an exam every week. There might be an exam like once a month. And that's like their test. So in school, there's tests. But in trade school, maybe there's only tests like once a month. And that might even be depending on the course. Like, so for example, the history major, maybe there's a test once a week, because the history is a lot of just learning and memorizing and then answering questions about it. Whereas a night school or a night major, you're not really taking an exam once a week. It's like, okay, well, you learn some stuff, but it's like a lot of it's actually like fighting combat stuff. So you don't have to take a test every week. So I think it depends on the teachers and when they want to give the test. And you have to think about it like this, right? A Friday is technically a free day, but the teachers can give an exam, but the exams, it's not like they're 5-hour exams. The exam/tests are only probably going to take 1 hour, and it's only one test. It's not like you have 7 different classes to take tests for. So if you're only taking, for most people, if you're only taking one exam a month, most of the time, that's like 3 weeks, 3 out of the 4 weeks of a month, you get 3 Fridays off and then 1 where you have to come in for an hour to take a test. It's not like it's not a free day. It is still a free day. It's just you have to spend 1 hour taking a test like once a month. Does that answer your question? Here we have free days when the important exams took place. You are free to come only when you are programmed on the list for the test. Yeah. So like you don't have to come. Only students who have tests have to come that day. So it's not like it's a required. I mean, it is required for the people taking the test, but not everybody's going to have a test at the same day. So yeah. It's freezing. That's too bad. All right, I'll wait. Is it my face cam or is it the stream? Is the stream itself buffering, or can you still hear me fine and it's my face cam that's being all weird? But then that wouldn't get rid of the brilliant joke. Uh, well, is it still bad? Really? It's not showing up like I don't see anything. It like on my end, everything looks fine. Is it fine now? Okay, it's fine now, I guess. So I think depending on the major, like, for example, okay, what? How about this? How about this? Happy compromise here. There is one official exam day per month, and that's taking place on a Friday. However, teachers have all authority to use up time in their class to give out normal tests. Okay? So, what could happen is, like, they have a test in 2 weeks on Friday. So it's like, okay, no surprise there because it's the standard monthly test. However, I don't know how Durelium knows that there's a test coming up, but he can show up on the days that there's a pop quiz. So it's not like that's a thing. And then also the teachers could probably say, okay, we're going to have an exam this Friday, even though it's not a national exam day. Fridays are exclusively for tests. There's one standard, there's like one required monthly test on a specific day. But the teachers can give tests on any day of the week, including Friday, not the weekends though. So it's just reserved. Normal school run and the speed run? I don't get it. A speed run of what? It's not like you could. I mean, Durelium still has to show. Well, okay, that's an interesting question because, well, we never really answered if the students are staying and if the students are required to stay for however long the teacher's teaching, or if they only have to stay for the 2 hours. And then Durelium, if he is gone for, if the joke is that he's never in class and he only shows up for the test, wouldn't that technically be breaking the rules? Normal run, go to all classes, learn all properly. There'd be asked question. Speed run, exams only. Okay. I mean, I guess technically. So. Okay, maybe what if we changed it to this, right? Students don't have to show up to school at all. But since they are paying some price to go to the school, they are obligated to go to school. And the start time starts at the same time every day. It's just the end time that changes. That way we can still have the running gag that Durelium is not really there that often, and then he just shows up on the exam days. And most of the students would show up every day. And it's not like, because I mean, you're gonna miss content if you're not there. And maybe if you miss, well, no, I think it might be, as long as you're doing fine on the exams, I think the exams should be good exams. They're not like stupid exams that are just, multiple choice questions. They should be exams that actually test how much you are learning in class. And if you do fine on the exams, then that you're proving that you are paying attention in class and that you're doing just fine, and you're going to be able to, actually do stuff in the workplace. So, if Durelium's still passing the exams and he's not showing up to class, then so be it. That's fine, I guess. Exams are mandatory, classes are not exactly. So do we want to get rid of, like, all students are required to be in school for 2 hours a day? Like, should we just say, like, there is one start time, same start time per day, students most students come, not all do. Most people go to the classes to learn everything that will be on the test. Exactly. The tests is just testing to make sure that you are learning what you're being taught and how to apply it. So, for example, the night exams might not be a multiple choice question. Sure, there's probably going to be some questions on there like, what does this rule state? But it's also going to be testing your ability to, you know, if one day you're learning how to use a dagger, okay, you're going to have to, you know, do an exam and show your skills. And it's going to be your actual teacher grading these exams to show, like, okay, well, how well is my student doing? It's not like it's a standardized test where you're only doing multiple choice and you're just regurgitating what you were memorizing. You're actually showing your teacher, this is what I've learned, these are the skills that I've acquired, so I'm doing fine in the class. That's what the exams, I think, should be. Because those are true exams. Those are truly how to do tests well, which in the US we don't do well at all. So, yeah. It's either that there's a school day schedule or there isn't mandatory class attendance at all. I think as far as Durellium goes, and as far as making it like a really relaxed system, there should be no schedule whatsoever. It's not mandatory to show up. You just have to show that you are learning stuff and that you know, because in Durellium's case, right? If he still knows a bunch about history and he's doing just fine on the exams, like, why go to school? Like, if you're doing just fine on your own, you know, you can do whatever you want. As long as you're qualified to be in the workplace, that's fine. Keep to our minimum, just get rid of the Friday exam day. Make Durellium and Blake have a deal so he doesn't get graded on daily assignments. Well, are the teachers taking attendance and are you penalized for missing a class? Because if you're not taking attendance, then there's no point in saying that the students have to be there for 2 hours a day. Oh, he uses history to write ballads. Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Magic enforcement against cheating. That's a good idea too. Oh, Durellum? Have I been saying it wrong this whole time? Is it Durellium or Durellum? Blake clearly doesn't respect the king's government. Faking the attendance wouldn't be that hard. I know, that's true. But, like, wouldn't word get around? Like, I don't know. So are we changing the Friday is an exam day, or what are we doing? The two options are keep Friday is an exam day, and there's one mandatory exam per month, and get rid of the mandatory attendance and make it so that, you know, you don't have to go to school as long as you're doing fine on the exams. Or we keep the mandatory time, like students have to be here for a certain amount of time, then they can leave and do whatever. And then get rid of the exam day and teachers just assign that whenever. Durellium. Durellium, right? It's Durellium, right? Is it not? Google Translate says it well. Uh, okay. Dorello. Okay. Well, we're not really focused on Durellum's name. Durellum, yeah. Okay, I don't know. I guess I was just putting a U in there. Durellum, Durellim, Durellim. I don't know. I'll have to type it into Google Translate and pronounce it later. What, Durellium? You want me to call him Durellium? Okay. Anyway, we're not really focusing on the on Durellum or Durellium's name. We're focusing on the school system. And you know what? We're actually doing pretty good on time. I thought we were going to be done in like an hour, but this actually took most of the time. That's good. Okay, so what do we think? I think the real question is, do we have mandatory showing hours or not? Yeah, that's funny. I think it's entirely possible for Blake to be like, all right, look, I don't care if you don't show up or not. Just do well on the exams and I don't care. That would be funny. I think that would suit his personality fairly well. So if we wanted to do that, I'm up for that. Mandatory but loosely enforced, right? Okay, can we get back on track as far as like the school days? They got a couple questions left. Are we keeping I honestly like the idea of mandatory monthly exams that occur on a Friday. I think as far as like benchmarking, and it's more of a day for the teachers to gather information as far as how much the students are learning and what their abilities is. And each student could have, like, say for example, nights, they're going to have specific things related to their ability from what they've learned. So if they had a week on daggers and that's what they are being tested on in the exam, you know, they could show off what they've been doing with the daggers. So they would maybe sign up for like a 20-minute time slot, and then the students would only show up for that 20-minute time slot, and then they can leave. That's it. So I like the idea of mandatory monthly exams, but I still think teachers should be able to give it like regular old tests whenever they want. Mandatory monthly Friday exams. I like that. Does anybody like really oppose that? Like, it's just one exam a month. It's not that bad. That's only 12. That's only 12 exams in an entire year. So like, yeah, it's not. I think that teachers have to make their students show up for 2 hours, but Blake just doesn't, because he does whatever he feels like doing. So maybe it's like the teachers are expected to have 2 hours of content per day. But are the monthly exams for, but what are the monthly exams for though? It's like standardized tests that count towards something more than school. Okay. The monthly exams is for the students to show off what they've learned and what, like, how they have progressed. So how the U.S. school system does it is they don't have like they have like standardized tests, but it's not like one monthly test every month on the same day and whatever. What this would be, it would be a specific time. If it's a written test, fine, that's what it is for that month, but it's not always going to be a written test. It's a lot of the time it's going to be a one-on-one between you and the teacher, and they're just going to be asking you some questions like, what have you learned so far? And in the case of a knight, I'm going to go back to the dagger example. If they've been doing daggers, the knight teacher is going to be like, okay, let's have a spar with, wooden daggers or whatever. And so the teacher is going to be like, okay, I have now gained an insight as to how my students are doing. And so they can say, okay, well, this student needs a little bit more help in this area, whereas this student over here is doing just fine, so let me focus on this student a little bit more and this student a little bit less. So it's not like they're actually being graded on the exams. It's more for the teachers to see how well the students are doing in their class. Does that make sense? And at that point, then the teachers can be like, okay, do I need to punish the student and give them a worse grade? I don't know how grades are going to work, but should we punish them a little bit for not trying as hard or not doing as well because they are far behind the rest of the class? Or are they trying hard and I just need to focus on them more? It's more for the teachers to see how the students are doing versus them just giving an exam and being like, okay, well, here's your grade. I think it's more of, it should be on the teacher's to-do list. Well, okay, that's sort of off. It should be on the teachers to actually be the ones who are like, this student is qualified to go into this field. The teachers on Elaria should be good teachers, not just teachers who say, here's what you need to know, here's the test, you failed or you passed. Teachers should actually be teaching, and the teachers should be the ones who are qualified to say, this student is well enough to work in this field. Does that make sense? If Blake was a high-ranked knight, be sure... Oh, the chat's moving. It's not moving. He would know how to make a lesson compact and clear, strategy, and personalized for each individual. Yeah. The teachers on Elaria should be good teachers, not like just teachers who are just teaching to the textbook. There'd be a moment when Luna is talking with Blake for the exam and she finds out that he's the villain during the exam. Whoa, and then she fails the exam. Okay, yeah. I think we've cleared that up. That's sort of what I had in mind as far as the monthly exams. They're not... I hate real exams and I hate real tests because they don't show your ability, because most people for actual tests and stuff just memorize the thing. Well, more for high school. I don't know about college. But I think most people in high school are... They're just like, okay, well, let's just, memorize it and then forget it. That's just how it is. And that's terrible. That's not how we should be teaching and learning and stuff. It's just bad practice. Okay. So, going back to the minimum, we've spent probably 30 minutes on this. Is there a minimum time that the students are required to go to each day? Oh, okay. Here's an idea. Sort of like going off of this Blake thing again. What if Blake got like an emergency call thing, and some of the teachers knew that he was a previous knight, and then maybe there's like a big trouble and somebody's attacking the school for some reason, or maybe there's like a student gone rogue and they need like a good professional's help, right? And so they're like, okay, well, nobody else is here right now because it's an exam day. Like the night teachers aren't. Oh, well, I guess it would be a mandatory exam. Maybe the night teacher's off doing something else. Maybe he was sick, so he had to reschedule the exam or something. I don't know. Anyway, they were like, Blake, we need you. Okay. So then Blake is like, he rushes out and helps them or whatever because like he's obligated to. He might not like doing it, but he's like, all right, fine, whatever. And at that time, he's currently doing Luna's exam, but they're in his office or whatever. And then Luna finds his notebook and she looks through it and then sees everything that she's written down. And she's like, wait, this is just my notebook. Why does he have a copy? And it's like, and then it all clicks, and it's like, oh, well, no. He's the other person who's been telling us what to do through the notebook. I don't know. That's just an idea. Or nights aren't taught at that school. Yeah, that's true. Blake rips the curtain staff and beats them up. If students just memorize stuff for a specific exam, then they'll forget it, and then it's useless. Right, exactly. Students in this school system should actually be learning, and that's why it's a trade school, not just like a general school where they're learning whatever they want. Okay, that's like the season finale idea. Yeah. Okay. Going back to this. We need to answer this. Then we can move on to the last couple questions, okay? Okay. Is there a mandatory... Is the attendance mandatory or optional? Type in mandatory or optional into the chat. And then it doesn't matter because Duralium's not going to show up anyway. So Blake is either going to be relaxed or it just doesn't matter. Okay, so far I'm seeing mostly optional, a couple mandatories. There's only 18 people here today. This is like a little small stream. Okay, I think most people are saying optional. So I think that's what we're going to go with, but I think most people are going to show up anyway. It's only... Duralium is basically the only person who doesn't show up. And so that's why they haven't had to enforce it, because everybody is just like, okay, well, we're sort of expected and we want to do well. That's why we're in trade school, because trade school in general is optional, but most people go. So, whoops, I forgot to know in there. Optional, but expected 2 hours per day. Okay, I think that's what most of us agreed on, right? Duralium's like literally the only person who doesn't come to school for the expected amount of time. Like, it's sort of like all the students sort of have been put into their head, like, come 2 hours are mandatory. Like, maybe there's a bell after 2 hours. And it's like, okay, we can leave now. But it's like, they've never really took the time to question, like, do I actually have to be here? And technically they don't have to be here. But everybody's just, like, grown up on the fact that, like, well, I guess it wouldn't be grown up. But everybody told them that, like, you have to be there for 2 hours. Even though it's not a rule that they enforce. Okay. So, how long are the school breaks? Holidays. So is there a summer? I think with how much time they get off, it wouldn't be very long. Like, they already have 3-day weekends. So I would say short. Like, they might get like 1 week off for a certain occasion. Like, there could be holidays, like, and we could do like a specific holiday that is specific to Elaria. Well, I mean, I guess that would be all holidays, I guess, on Elaria. But I think there's no like summer break or winter break. It's only there's like a week break if there's a holiday or something. 2-week break every 3 months. They get so much time off. I don't think there should be like a summer break. I think it should be short holiday breaks, rare. Okay. How big are the schools? So this is like, are they like college campus size? Are they just a singular building? Are they broken up into many buildings? And plus, you have to think about it like this, too, right? They get to pick what class they're going to go into, so you would expect that they don't pick a class that they hate. So you would think that they would try to have fun actually learning what they want to learn. So it wouldn't be, that bad. Oh, wait, I think as far as the, this goes, I think the school should be pretty big. Because there are tons of different majors, and so I would think that it would have to be pretty big. Huge! Okay. And I think it should be broken up into multiple buildings. Like, if there is one course that the school specializes in, but they still offer other courses, like maybe that main course gets an entire building. Plus, there would be like a gymnasium building, like a combat room building, a magic training building. So I think definitely, yeah. I think it should be broken into multiple buildings. Of course, these all depend on the schools. But I think for the most part, bigger schools, bigger than needed. I would like a tiny village with a big school. That's funny. Okay. Well, that's everything on here. Was there anything that we needed to talk about other than this? Should we talk about how grades work? Maybe that's another good question. How work / how do you graduate? This is important because here's the thing, right? If the teachers are assessing your ability and they are the ones, like, the school system and the government trusts the teachers to be fair and to actually teach, and I mean, sure, they're gonna have maybe some sort of curriculum, but it's not like it's super strict. Because the teachers get more freedom, because the teachers are required to actually teach and stuff, they have freedom to teach how they want to teach. And obviously the teachers are going to have to pass like a teaching test to make sure that they can actually teach well and stuff like that. But I think as far as how you graduate, I think it's just based on the teacher. Like the teacher's like, okay, yeah, you're good. Or the teacher's like, okay, no, I think you need to stay back another year. You have some work to do. And, you know, everybody just trusts the teachers because it's a very, I think in this world it should be a very respected job because they are the ones raising the future kids. So I think it should be like a highly respected position. The teachers find out how much or how well you are doing and how much you understand. Exactly. That's what the exams are for. They're assessing how well the students are doing in class. And I think, should there be a way for students to fail out of a class? Like, can a teacher kick a student out? Or is it just like the teacher can be, hey man, you're not doing super well. I don't think you should be in this major. You might want to consider switching. And then it's up to the student to decide. Because technically, the student doesn't have to show up. And if he just never ends up getting the certificate from the teacher, he's just going to stay in that one major and keep repeating until he's done. And is there like an age limit? Like, can you, if you're super old, can you go back and learn a different major? I think that makes sense since it's like a college. So you can have people of all ages in a class. Here's your degree, here's your diploma. That's pretty it's pretty gruesome. Okay. So I think that's what we should answer. Teachers decide there are no grades. So can students fail? I think that's the next question. Like some places, teachers are disrespected. Teachers are highly respected because they know how important the knowledge is. Exactly. I feel like Elarians should be kind toward others and respect/trust everyone in general. I agree with that. I like a society where everybody can trust each other and people aren't like, you know, breaking the rules and stuff like that. There's just like a standard that everybody follows and it's expected that you follow, and people just follow it because that's what's expected of you. It's not like there's rules that make you follow it. It's just the right thing to do. Okay. So are those yeses to can students fail? My guess is yes. So then is it up to the teacher? Because if you just, well, I guess if the teachers are all good, then it's not like you have to really worry about a teacher just saying, okay, you're out of here. So we'll leave that as yes. How are different classes divided up? As far as what? What context? Like, are you talking about like the different majors or the different years? Because each year, well, no, it wouldn't be each year because the students are in the same class for all 3 years. Like history and folklore. Oh, okay. So it's like if there's multiple majors in one thing. Okay. So here's one example that I can think of, right? Specifically for history as well. because history is something that is taught in 1 through 9 education, but not so much in primary education. So what's some of the big uses? I mean, obviously history is good to know, but like there's not as many job opportunities as there is like becoming a knight, for example. So one common thing that I would think would happen is people do the history major because they just like history and they think it's fun, but what they want to do as well is become a teacher, and they want to become a history teacher, right? History is a class and teaching is a separate class. So how does that work? Because they're two different majors, but you need both the history major and the teacher major to become a history teacher. So here's my question. Is there a specific course that teaches history and education in the same course? So it's like you go into this course to learn how to teach history. Or do you go into one history course, you complete that, and then you're like, okay, well, I want to become a history teacher. So then you take, after the history, you take the teacher course. I think what should happen is it should be like you go to history, you take a history course, and then you do a specific teaching course after that as well. So I think it's the second thing that you do. How would Blake become a history teacher if he was a knight and didn't get a history or a teacher major? That's a good question. Well, what if he took the history major and the teaching major before he became a knight, and then maybe he just became a knight on a whim, and then he was actually really good at it, so then he just never did anything with his history major. So then when he retired being a knight, and if you don't have to like, if he was like a combat knight that went out and fought the monsters on the monster island, like that's not so much as long as you are a good fighter, like it's not like you have to have a knighthood education. They'll accept anybody who's super powerful. So you learn to get the job that your teacher has. May it be a teacher knight. If the school is not mandatory, what stops you from going to multiple ones? Well, the thing is, if there is a consistent start time, then you wouldn't be able to take multiple majors at a time. Okay, here's an interesting idea, actually. What if there were two branches of classes, right? One class that started earlier in the morning, and that's like your main major. And then there's a secondary class, so say, for example, teaching, and that's a second branch. Maybe there's a maximum to how much teachers can teach. So maybe there can be a maximum of 6 hours, because at that 6-hour mark, the secondary classes start. So then you could be taking two different majors at once. So history, and then later on in the day, teaching, education. So that would solve that issue, and it would still give you the flexibility to learn what you wanted. So if there was other things like history and folklore, it could be like that. Or I think for history and folklore, it makes more sense for it to be like a two-part class. So for 2 years, you're taking history, and then like for 1 or 2 years, you're taking folklore. After that, same teacher, and it's basically an extension off of the previous class, but it's not mandatory for you to take both. You just get a history major if you stop at the history, but you get a history and folklore major if you stay through the folklore. Night school for teacher major. Well, sort of. Except for it wouldn't necessarily be night school. It would be like later in the day school. Because if the school day starts at 8 and you're there for 5 hours, that's 1. If the maximum was 5 hours, then you're only there till 1. And say class starts at 2 and you're there for, 3 or 4 hours. It's not like it's super late. So, if you get the exam, you should be fine. Yeah, I think that works. So, like, education would be a secondary class, and then I'm trying to think of other examples, but I can't necessarily right now. I'm sure there's definitely other stuff out there that would count as like a secondary course where you need 2 different majors. So, I think, does that solve our problems, or do we want to do it in a different way? Wouldn't it be cool if Luna, whose parents don't really want her becoming a knight... That's not true, actually. Luna's parents don't care what Luna does. They are supportive of what Luna wants to do. Being tutored by a knight, by Blake, so she could trust him, and she and Nico think he's the bad guy, slightly. Brace yourself. Well, Luna's parents don't care what she does. They are going to be supportive of Luna no matter what she chooses to do. Luna is just super self-conscious about it, and she just doesn't want, like, she thinks her parents have an expectation of her, even though they don't. So she basically just does whatever her parents tell her to, because that's what she feels like she has to. Yeah, that way if you don't like history, you don't have to be a history teacher. But if you wanted to be a history teacher, then you still can, and it's not like it's going to take you to, like, if getting a history major takes you 2 years and becoming a teacher takes you 4 years, it's not going to take you 6 years. It's only going to take you 4 years, because that's the longer major. Well, if Luna shows potential, Blake would love to have her under him. Then all the notebook situation is just worse. I like drama, yeah. What happens if there's a fire drill? Does the question even fit in this context? Well, I think as far as fire drills go, I don't know if there would be fire drills, because here's the thing, right? They're gonna have, most schools are going to, maybe fire drills would be something of like the more 1 through 9 education, but in the trade schools you could still have some fire drills, but I think it would be less important, because most schools are going to have at least one magic major of some kind, and in those magic major you're going to have some sort of water magic users. So if there's like, oh shoot, there's a fire, quickly call the water magic people. It's like, okay, well, it's not really that big of an issue. But monster invading drills to keep the citizens afraid, well, yeah, that could work. Historians should be respected, as they might hide secrets. After all, the king has some bad parts in history, and the population might not know about that. Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, it's not like people are questioning the king, because everybody loves the king. It's only specific people like Blake who's like, okay, well, the king might not be the best guy. You have no fire drills in Romania? Dang. Okay. So some actually bullet points. Some classes are 2-parters, like history and folklore. 2 years history and 2 years. Folklore. Okay. There are two. What should we call it? Like, types or branches? Or like, what is that? What should it be called? Like, well, no, not majors. There's two separate classes per day, but what should those be called? Like, there's the main major and the secondary major for the day. Two divisions? Well, right. It could be primary and secondary, but what are those two called? There are two. Well, right. Okay, major and minor, fine, but like grouped together. Periods? They could be periods. That actually works well. Per day. One. Okay, I think periods works well. The second is optional. Teaching and other classes that go with the major. With the main major. Okay. Well, that's good. Well, this actually took the entire stream, which I'm surprised about, because I thought this was going to take like 1 hour, and then we were going to have like a full hour to do like whatever we wanted. So that's good. I really like having questions and just answering the questions, because I feel like we've been more productive in the past couple of streams than we have been the other streams. So this is good. I like this format. Okay, is there anything else? Any other questions we should answer? Anything else we should talk about regarding the education? Or should we just, I don't know, what else? We can play Snake or Minesweeper now. Well, we also need to talk about what we want to do next week. Well, yeah, when it's a free-for-all, we all tend to get off of topic. Yeah, that's true. Looks like this system does not favor those who don't know what they want to do for a career path. Yeah, that's true. There's no, because it's like in college, you oftentimes have to take like, basic math and English and whatnot. But in this, it's like, no, you're only focusing on the major that you want to take. So, after a certain point in college, though, it's sort of expected, like, you can go your first year or so without knowing what major you want. But after that year, like, you really got to lock down what you want to do. So, it's sped up on Elaria. Like, it's just expected that you're going to know what you want to do at that period of time. And when something is expected of you, you think about it more. So if people are like, okay, well, I've only got like 2 years until I have to pick a major, they're constantly thinking about what they want to do with their life. So I think that issue sort of gets solved by itself. But I mean, yes, that is true. That if somebody doesn't know what they want to do, then they're going to be kind of stuck. Okay, magic is still an iffy thing. Well, that's not entirely true. We're going to have two different systems to present. It's just interesting. The main islands do not have names yet. Let me scroll up a little bit. Cooking show next week. Probably not. Is there homeschooling? No, there's no homeschooling. No, definitely not. Okay, we could do knights. I guess technically we could do magic, although I don't know how that would go. That would probably not be. I mean, we could establish the magic, and that's pretty important to do. But it's like, I don't know. I'm just kind of scared. I'm really scared to do magic. What do you get when your reports? What? What do you, like, there's no, like, report cards. It's not like there's grades. Your parents can pressure you into something, and by 8th grade, as dramatic as it might sound, you kind of know inside what you wish to do. Exactly, yeah. Trade school doesn't start until grade 10, right? So yeah, grades 1 through 9 are just basic, you know, learning math, learning English, learning history, stuff like that. That's basic. That's basic 1 through 9 school. 10 through however long your major is, that's the trade school. Okay, it scrolled me all the way down again. All right, let me. Do the main islands have names yet? No. Did I answer that question? I can't remember. Okay, magic. Story arcs, kings and enemies, jobs, laws, magic or king. Oh, yeah. We share the same terror. Yeah, I know. I'm scared. What about the magic schooling? Well, magic majors are a whole different, like, magic schooling is a whole different major on its own. So magic stream with the 2 different systems, and the chat decides which parts they like best. I'm also terrified, but magic is the most important thing right now because of how it affects everything else. Yeah, that's true. And maybe having it as a stream will make us more motivated to talk about it a little bit more. Okay. Let's do some magic. Okay, so the way that next week is probably going to work is there's going to be 2 different systems of magic that we're going to be talking about, because we're having trouble deciding what kind of magic and how people use magic, sort of what magic you can use, as far as if there's only 5 elements or if there's like a bunch of different things that you can do. So yeah, it's just been conflict and we haven't been able to figure out what specifically we want. So next week I think we'll do magic. It'll be like, we're not really brainstorming, it's more of a presentation, so that way we can, as a group, decide what we want. And then at that point, if there's something like, oh, we like this out of this system and then this out of this other one, then we can combine things and hopefully just brainstorm. Because honestly, that might just be the best option at this point, is just to brainstorm some more stuff to fix the problems that we're having. So, but magic is super important, because that's the backbone of Elaria. So if we change magic completely from what I have in my head right now, then it's going to change a lot of things, I think. At least for like what I'm envisioning. But yeah, we'll see. All right. We've got 10 minutes. What shall we do with this time? We can just end the stream now, 10 minutes early, or we can do like Minesweeper or Snake or something. When are we going to start the story writing? Are you talking about like episodes? That's a long time coming. Like, we still have a lot of time to do stuff. Like, we have to establish the world and basic stuff like that before we can get into like actually writing the story. You have a fanfic? Send me the fanfic. I want to read it. Okay. Snake. All right, hold up. Let me find Snake. All right. Here's Snake. Get out of here. Oh, I don't think you're supposed to do that. Oh, dang it. Alright, let me change this. Actually, let's try some of the different modes. Like, there's a slow mode, a fast mode. What's the wall mode? I want to try the wall mode. Alright, what fruit should we have? What editing software do I use? Adobe Premiere Pro. Did I read your episode start? Did you send it to me? I don't know. I don't think I did. Unless if it was like a really long time and I'm just forgetting it now. It's pinned in the general... Okay, at me or something. At me with the message link or something, because that's the only way I'll check it. Because I'll forget. Lemons? That's the... Oh, shoot. Dang it. I clicked this. Oh, I clicked it again. There. Alright, we're gonna do lemons, because that's the only suggestion I think I got. I don't think there is a lemon. Sorry. We'll do a fruit bowl. How about that? Alright, what's the wall mean? Oh, it just spawns in a random wall. Is it every time, or is it... Oh. Interesting. Well, this certainly makes it harder. Choose mushrooms next. Well, the fruit bowl is just random. We can do mushrooms. Dang it, missed that one. Ta-da. Oh no, there was a wall there. It would be nice if Duralium and Atom happens when the worlds connect. But I still have no idea if you guys are serious or not. Well, I think it would actually be pretty cool. What's this button do? Oh, it's randomized. Okay. Well, all right. Let's play Minesweeper instead. Is there a Minesweeper? I like Minesweeper. We can do a medium. Let's do a medium. The worlds are gonna connect. Well, okay, the worlds aren't necessarily gonna connect, but it's more of like a they are like people can travel freely to the worlds. That's how it is. That's how it's gonna be implemented. Like Luna and Nico are gonna make it their goal to make it so that people can travel between Elaria and Earth. All right. Ooh, it's a 4. Nice. Oh, yeah. Okay, there's one there. One there. One there. Okay. Okay, one there. I misclicked there. Luckily, there wasn't a bomb there. That would have been bad. It's probably there. Okay. Let's go over here. There's one there. Nice. We're doing good. I thought there means there has to be one there. Sorry that there's no commentary. I'm trying to focus on this. There's one there. Ooh, a 5-1? Ooh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it really went all there. Dang. And there's 4. 1, 2, 3. So that means there's one here somewhere. Okay. That one's good. Oh, sweet. One there. That's open. There's one here between these two. One, two. One, two, three. Okay, well, I guess that's there. Yeah, that might. It is there. 1, 2. This one has 3. If it was there, so that means it has to be there. Oh my god. There's only one more flag left. Where does it go? There we go. All right. I think that's it. So we're doing magic again. Is this gonna be the third magic stream? No, we've only done one other one, so this is gonna be the second one. Alright, well that's gonna be it for this week. Thanks for joining me again. And I guess I'll see you next week. Me? Do I keep scaring you? What did I do? Yeah, we were pretty productive this week, too. Alright. Yeah, alright. Magic. We'll do it. We'll get through it together. Alright, see you guys later. End stream.